Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Robert Halleck, and I am the Senior Technical Marketing Manager for AMD's Client Business Unit. And today, I think I have a pretty exciting set of news for you. We are going to have a pretty big 2019 when it comes to notebook, all things notebook. And so I wanted to give you a preview of what's going to happen throughout 2019. So we'll step into the agenda here real quick. And what you'll see is we're going to do a little bit of market recap, market forecast, just setting the table for where the market is and is going to be in today and in 2019. You'll hear about our second gen Ryzen mobile CPU. You'll hear about an exciting update we have for past, present, and future Ryzen mobile customers. And we're going to wrap it up with AMD entering the Chromebook market. So those are the three things you're going to hear about today, and we'll have a little bit of a wrap up at the end. Before I continue, I want to mention that all of this is under embargo until the 6th of January, 2019 at 9 a.m. Pacific. So 6th of January, 9 a.m. Pacific, all of this is free to write about. So let's dig in. First things first, just a little bit of a shape of the market. You can see that the unit volume peaked in 2017 for notebooks at about 90 million, and there's been a little bit of a contraction since then, forecasting out until 2019. But what you can see is that the Chromebook market is growing, the gaming notebook market is growing, and there's a bit of a mixture change. People are moving towards more premium notebooks and more mainstream notebooks up from the value segment. So in general, there is a push for Chromebook and a push to more premium designs. And AMD's coverage of that market in 2017 was primarily the AMD A series for most of the year, and that was value Windows, or the entry level of the mainstream Windows market. And then of course at the end of 2017 we unveiled the very first AMD Ryzen mobile processor. And so that has been firing away for all of 2018 with great success. And now we have very fantastic coverage in the mainstream and premium Windows market, and even a little bit of value Windows with Ryzen 3 as well. So the question becomes, what does 2019 look like? And I can give you a view of that. Certainly, it will be more coverage than we've ever had. You'll have AMD A4 and A6 processors for Chromebook, which we'll touch on in this presentation. The second gen Ryzen mobile processor family now has an Athlon mobile CPU. We'll touch on that as well. And of course, we're refreshing with Ryzen 3, 5, and 7 parts also. So this is the most comprehensive coverage we've ever had of the notebook market going into 2019. Covering Chromebook, gaming notebooks, premium Windows, mainstream Windows, value Windows. We have a product for virtually every segment here, and that's why we think that 2019 is going to be a really great year for our notebook market. So, as I mentioned, second gen Ryzen mobile, you can call it the second gen AMD Ryzen mobile processor with Radeon Vega graphics. That's first up on our agenda. And the thing you need to know about the mobile market in 2019, when somebody walks in the door to Best Buy or Micro Center or is shopping online, odds are good that their laptop is 4.8 years old. Now, you and I, we probably have the latest and greatest hardware because of the industry that we work in, but that is not what the average consumer has. They have a laptop that's from 2014 or 2015 if they're walking in the door to evaluate a purchase decision. So that's what we're working with. And so the numbers you're going to see today are going to start with what an upgrade like that would entail. If somebody had that 5-year-old notebook, what would they get from going to the second gen Ryzen mobile CPU? But of course, I'm going to show you 2019 versus 2019 data as well. But so for an average consumer, 5-year-old notebook, what'll it take? What does it give them to make that upgrade? Well, first of all, a generic office type productivity, a day in the office, it's 60% faster. That's file compression, some Photoshop, some everyday Microsoft Office workloads. these are things that consumers do every day on their notebook if they're in any sort of office job, and it's going to be 60% faster for those customers. And the laptops that we're comparing against here, I'm sure you're curious, they're actually Broadwell notebooks. Haswell would be a more appropriate comparison, but we certainly could not find one that was in working condition. So we're looking against Broadwell notebooks when you see 2015 on this slide. So we're 60% faster for your office worker if they made the upgrade this year. Next up, one of the other things that was just really breathtaking to me is how much faster multimedia tasks can be. If you look at the media editing row, we're talking 15 times or 16 times faster, well over 1,000% faster, going to a second-gen Ryzen mobile CPU from one of these laptops that a consumer is likely to have. Web browsing is faster. General PC responsiveness is massively increased, and that's application start time, application run speed. These are things that just make the laptop feel easier, nicer, smoother to use. So there's a quality of life element there too. It's not just performance when you're upgrading a notebook that's 5 years old. It's that feeling of immediacy and speed that a new notebook can give you. And that is a nice feeling indeed when you go make a fairly significant purchase decision and see how much better the experience is. Continuing on the theme of quality of life, one of the things that AMD has taken great effort is bringing in all the Windows modern features into the second-gen Ryzen mobile processor. So you get about 10 hours of video playback, you get 12 hours of general battery life use, but you also get the Windows modern things like modern standby or voice wake, so you can sort of use your laptop kind of like a smartphone. It wakes up, you put it to sleep just with the power button, and it's instantly there, or you can access it from afar. And then, of course, every AMD Ryzen mobile CPU in the second generation has capability for 4K HDR streaming. So that premium Netflix or Amazon instant video experience is here and fully supported on the second-gen Ryzen mobile processor. And that together makes a really comprehensive package. Again, it's not just about the performance, it's also about the responsiveness and about the features consumers are giving up by choosing to stay with an older laptop. And the market has come a long way. You're certainly not going to get 10 to 12 hours of battery life out of one of those older notebooks. You're not going to get playable gaming performance out of those old notebooks. And sure, we're only talking about ultra-thin notebooks here. They're not gaming notebooks by any means, but by God, a second-generation Ryzen mobile processor can actually play a game when you're done working or done browsing the web or whatever it is you'd like to do. So moving on, the other thing that I want to point out is I mentioned that I would give you 2019 versus 2019 data. So here we're looking at the Ryzen 5 3500U, sort of a mainstream, very high volume segment, Core i5, Ryzen 5, and against a 2019 compete, we have faster web browsing, faster media editing, and it's a tie in productivity. So you get all the things done in the office at the speed you would with any other laptop, but then when you're done, the stuff you really want to be doing, the media editing, the web browsing, the having fun, that's faster on AMD in 2019. And so it's not just a comparison of someone walking in the door with this old laptop and AMD is faster. It's also someone walking in the door with this old laptop looking at an AMD notebook on the shelf and the other guy's notebook on the shelf, and my notebook is faster in every case in those comparisons. And that's a good place to be. We're very happy about that. The other thing I wanted to show you, speaking of gaming performance, is Rocket League, Dota, Fortnite. About 100 million people play these games, and you can actually get very playable gaming performance on an ultra-thin notebook with the second-gen Ryzen mobile CPU. Again, these are not gaming notebooks. They're not designed to be. There's definitely a dedicated market segment for that. But what this shows is that the hardware ecosystem, that AMD's engineering prowess is delivering experiences in these segments that used to be reserved to much higher end segments. Radeon Vega graphics is tremendously powerful for low power, for low wattage, and you can see with Rocket League, we're getting nearly 90 frames a second in this title. And I'm a huge Rocket League player, and let me tell you, 90 frames a second is a very smooth, beautiful experience. So look, that's just a unique thing that the second-gen Ryzen mobile processor can offer you. And again, we're comparing here versus the flagship Ryzen 7 3700U versus Whiskey Lake. So this is their latest versus my latest, and I'm bringing home a very strong gaming performance leadership message here. I did mention, as I gave you a overview of the market, that we're going to start looking at the gaming notebook market a little more strongly. And you saw a bit of that with our first gen Ryzen mobile CPU. There were a couple dedicated gaming notebooks. Top of mind is a system from Acer, for example. We're going to be taking on more strategic opportunities in 2019 in gaming, and we're going to be doing that with the Ryzen 3000H series mobile processors. So there's two of them, and you can see them on the slide. It's the Ryzen 7 3750H and the Ryzen 5 3550H. These are 35-watt configured products, so a much higher power envelope than a traditional, say, Ryzen 7 3700U at 15 watts. And the point of this processor is to be paired with a discrete graphics card, like the Radeon RX 560X that you see on the slide here, and to provide a great entry-level mainstream gaming notebook experience. Again, we're taking on strategic partnerships in 2019, getting our sea legs in this market. This is an area that we have not traditionally played in quite a while. So getting back into the market with those select opportunities and producing some really nice, affordable gaming notebooks like the FX505DY that you see here. That's the name of the game for 2019. And this is a beautiful notebook, especially that IPS 1080p 120 hertz FreeSync panel. Those are just dream specs for a notebook panel for me. And seeing them paired with such a nice CPU and a nice GPU to really make good on that promise is a nice thing to see. So look forward to this FX505 and other notebooks that feature the 3008 series throughout the year. We'll have more to share, but the key takeaway here is that we're testing the waters in the gaming notebook in 2019, and we have dedicated 35-watt Ryzen mobile parts to do it. Now, the last question for the Ryzen mobile family is what does the stack look like? This is kind of an eye chart, so I'll just let you pause and review for a moment. But the basic takeaway here is that we have 7 SKUs going into 2019, spanning 35 watts down to 15 watts. You have AMD Athlon at the entry level with 3 GPU cores, all the way up to the Ryzen 7 3700U and 3750H with 10 GPU cores. And you can get a sense of the boost clocks and the base clocks and whatnot from the chart. But the goal here is that AMD Athlon is new for us. That is an entry-level processor that allows us to tackle that entry-level Windows market that Ryzen Mobile wasn't really addressing previously. And then the Ryzen 5 3550H and 3750H at 35 watt allows us to start testing the gaming notebook market that we weren't really addressing previously. So those 3 SKUs right there are a big expansion to the coverage of the notebook market. Now, moving on to the experience side, one thing that I know will make users very happy, this is an agenda item for us. All users, past, present, and future of Ryzen Mobile will start receiving regular driver updates starting in Q1 of 2019. So if you see a new graphics driver come out for discrete Radeon cards to support a new game, that driver will also support first gen Ryzen mobile, second gen Ryzen mobile, Athlon mobile, anything based on the 3000 or 2000 series mobile parts will be included in that driver update. So users can go out, download the available generic driver, load it on their system, and get that day zero game support and issue correction support that they're looking for. And so we're very, very excited about this update, and we know people have been asking for it. And so here it comes, Q1 2019 regular driver updates for Ryzen Mobile. So to summarize the second gen Ryzen Mobile section, it's a story of performance, features, and endurance. As I mentioned, the average customer, they have a 5-year-old notebook. It's so old, and they're missing out on so much in terms of performance. We looked at media editing, which was 15 or 16 times faster. People are editing media more than ever. Just the rise of YouTube and Vimeo and social media and all these content sharing platforms. It's sort of a basic task now that someone would edit media. And to do it 16 times faster is a crazy speed up. And then features, we talked about things like modern standby, voice wake, 4K HDR video playback, things that an old laptop just can't do. And then they would do it with battery life that an old laptop just can't match, 10 to 12 hours, right? And I guess the key takeaway for second gen Ryzen Mobile is that because of our CPU performance and because of our graphics performance, we are still the world's fastest processor for ultra thin. And you get that with great video, playback battery life, great general battery life, lots of performance, lots of features. That is a very nice mobile CPU starting in 2019. So now we're going to flip over to design wins. I know you have questions about what's coming down the pipe. So the Ryzen 3000 series starts today. It starts with the second gen Ryzen mobile CPU, but will eventually expand to other parts as well. And altogether, the Ryzen 3000 series, including second gen Ryzen mobile, we're on track for about a third more design wins in 2019 versus what we had in 2018. So consistent, steady, manageable growth for us is the name of the game. And when you come to CES and see some of the systems that we're presenting, and when you go to other events throughout the year in 2019 and see some of those newer designs that are still going to be top secret at CES, I think you're really going to like what you see. We have some really nice designs coming down the pipe from our partners, and it's just proof that we have the performance and the battery life and the power efficiency to really get into these beautiful, sleek, sexy form factors. Okay, so that is second gen Ryzen Mobile. Now we're going to flip over to Chromebook. AMD, yes, is getting into the Chromebook market with two processors. There's an AMD A6 and an A4, and at the end of the section, I'll show you a little bit more about the specs. But one thing you need to know about the Chromebook market is that it is growing very quickly. It is a nearly 8% annual growth rate. The average selling price of Chromebook notebooks are going up, up, up. And of course, we think our competition is underserving the market, frankly. They're leaving a lot on the table with their Pentium and Celeron models. So to have these AMD A4 and A6 models deliver 23% more web browsing performance, perhaps the use case for Chromebook, we think the time is absolutely right for AMD to get into this space. So growing market, selling prices are increasing, competition is underserving the performance of the market. That is absolutely a time for us. And so now I want to dig into the performance with you to show you what these AMD A4 and A6 CPUs can really deliver. You see a sort of a radar plot on the right. We're tracking productivity, email, gaming, web browsing, photo editing, and web apps. That is pretty much everything a consumer would want to do on a Chromebook. And you'll notice that the A6 9220C is faster in every single category. So I'm sure when you saw A4 or A6, you may have raised an eyebrow. And it's clear that the performance of these products is far and away superior to what is currently being offered in the mainstream and entry-level Chromebook segment. So let's dig in a little more on those corners of the radar plot. And we will start with web browsing and web apps, right? That is the core use case of the AMD Chromebook. And you can see that the AMD A6 9220C versus the Pentium 4200, or the AMD A4 9120C versus the Celeron N3350, faster, faster, faster. That is the name of the game for AMD and Chromebook, again, in this segment, right? We are competing against a Pentium part and a Celeron part, and we're just offering crushing performance leadership in the things that people are going to do with their Chromebook. And so if we move a step further past web apps, we can start looking at email, productivity, again, things people want to do all the time. We're talking just massive performance speed-ups by choosing an AMD A4 or A6 CPU for these types of workloads. That is going to make the system feel more responsive. It's going to help you get your work done faster, get your emails done faster, get your productivity out of the way so you can go play games or something, or just browse the web, again, faster on AMD. And as I flip through these slides, you're going to hear this story a lot. AMD is faster. That is AMD A4 and A6 in a nutshell in this space. Photo editing, people are doing that all the time. AMD is faster against both Pentium and Celeron. And we can go on to web gaming. All the browsers now have WebGL, and there are some surprisingly robust games that you can now play in a browser. And again, AMD's faster. And if you don't want to play a game in a browser, Chromebook now has Android app support. So there's tons of beautiful looking Android games that all run now on Chromebook as well. And we would offer you superior experience in that as well. So again, faster, faster, faster is the name of the game for AMD A6 and A4 for Chromebook notebooks. So just want to briefly wrap that all up by saying Chromebook is a very interesting and exciting opportunity for us. I certainly personally believe it's a space that traditional reviewer outlets don't look at all that often, but I think those notebooks are coming up in performance and features and build quality and all sorts of stuff really, really fast. And they are turning into some very, very nice notebooks very, very quickly. And in fact, I spent 6 weeks recently using a Chromebook full time as my work notebook. And not once did I feel like it was limiting me from doing the things that I needed to do at my job. And I was just sort of taken aback by how far the Chromebook market had come in so short amount of time, and how versatile that Chromebook truly was, especially with the Android app support. So I am personally very, very excited about the 9220C and the 9120C, because I can finally have a Chromebook with AMD inside and get a heck of a lot more performance out of it than I was getting from that test system previously. So that is Chromebook in a nutshell. You'll see we've got those two SKUs running up to 2.7 gigahertz on the 9220C. We've got 3 graphics cores, and they can both do VP9, H.264, H.265. So a really nice, efficient video story as well. And it is a requirement that all Chromebooks get at least 10 hours of battery life, so we handily clear that threshold as well. So you get that all-day battery life experience with that performance advantage of AMD in the Chromebook space. And we think this will be a very attractive opportunity for consumers buying in the Chromebook market or at the entry level of the notebook market. So if I were to wrap it all up, web browsing, productivity, web apps, web gaming, that is a huge advantage for AMD A-series CPUs on the Chromebook. Notably faster performance in every one of these categories. And it's just, I think, an unbeatable deal, right? You've got a notebook that's between $250 to $400 US with very snappy performance inside. It'll get you through the day. It'll do everything you need it to do. And Really, can you ask for anything more in a notebook? So we're excited about this opportunity. I appreciate you sticking with me thus far. I just want to wrap all of it up and remind you that we've got the second gen AMD Ryzen Mobile for all-within notebooks now, very much based on last year's AMD Ryzen Mobile. Now this time with more features and transition to the 12 nanometer process, which gives us more performance, lower power consumption, longer battery life. You may be curious, between first and second gen Ryzen Mobile, there's about an 8% performance difference on graphics and CPU, and that's just generation over generation, to say nothing of the massive, massive upgrade opportunity that second gen presents to customers with those 5-year-old laptops. And then AMD A6 and A4 for Chromebook, we're offering about 23% faster web browsing amongst all the other categories of performance you've seen today. And finally, all Radeon software updates starting in Q1 19 will apply to all Ryzen mobile notebooks. It'll just be a generic driver that you can go out and download. And when you put it all together, the key takeaway is that we have never had a better mobile portfolio. We've got top to bottom coverage with the Chromebook market and the new SKUs in the second gen Ryzen Mobile. We've got this great new driver story for customers with day zero game support, issue fixes, whatever. And together, that gives us a really, really comprehensive story in 2019, which is going to help us drive that 1/3 greater design win cycle this year as well. So I think we have some very compelling products, and I appreciate your time. As always, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to your local PR contact, or you can email myself, find me on Twitter. I'd be happy to answer your questions. Thank you for your time.